Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be covering what would happen if Naruto had snow release. Now, I know this is a bit of a strange concept, considering that if you could pick between having snow powers or ice powers, I'm pretty sure 9 out of 10 of you guys would pick the ice powers, but I found so many cool ways to manipulate snow and use it for avalanches, use it similarly to Gaara's attacks, and also have some aspects similar to ice, since, you know, snow is just a little teeny tiny bit less cold than ice. But that's enough yapping out of me. Like the video, share with a friend, and enjoy. We begin our story on the night of the Nine Tails attack, as we would zoom in on a baby Naruto having just been born when the strangest thing would happen. As Naruto would be given into the arms of Kushina, suddenly the room would grow cold, and frosty areas in the room would start to spike up out of nowhere. This is when suddenly, small little bits of snowflakes would begin forming in the room, with everybody looking around wondering what this is. Minato, seeing this in this moment, would question whether Naruto was born with some sort of strange Kike Genkai. Maybe it could be related to the Yuki clan, but at the moment, he was just so happy at the fact that his son was finally born and nothing had gone wrong. But this is when suddenly, everything would be flipped on its head, and the Night of the Nine Tails would resume just like it was in the original. As we would zoom into Hiruzen finding the baby Naruto, with Minato and Kushina dead by his side and a strange seal on his belly. Hiruzen would look down, touching the baby, as he would be shocked. The baby's skin, it was cold to the touch, and the sections where Naruto was crying, frost began forming. As Hiruzen would watch this picking the young baby up, he would be curious as to whether he was born with an ice Kike Genkai or a snow Kike Genkai. But whatever the case was, the boy was special, and that was a fact. As years would pass, Naruto would not show any signs of this strange ability, and the more Hiruzen tried to get Naruto to use it, the less and less Naruto would be able to. Naruto would unknowingly have been born with a strange snow release Kike Genkai that at the moment only would activate via Naruto's emotions. Whenever Naruto would let his emotions grow cold, sad, or lonely, Naruto's ice release would spike. But when Naruto was around others, when Naruto was having fun, when Naruto felt like he mattered, his Kike Genkai would disappear unexpectedly. And it was strange because it's not like Naruto was born with some sort of curse. He just instinctively would activate it and deactivate it whenever his body felt the moment fit for the occasion. It was kind of a survivor's instinct for Naruto, which would serve him well for battles, but for day-to-day life, it just wasn't exactly ideal. Because once Naruto was sent to live off on his own, Naruto would unintentionally, thanks to the loneliness and sadness that he would feel of seemingly having been put to the side like someone that didn't matter anymore just because he was old enough to fend for himself, would begin to experience countless moments where his Kike Genkai would go haywire, with his uncontrollable chakra causing many random things to happen in the building. Naruto's chakra would often leak whenever he couldn't control his emotions, and it would uncontrollably cause water pipes to freeze and snow to even begin falling indoors. And though this might normally affect somebody else, Naruto's body was built for the cold, so he couldn't feel it. But Naruto would be lying if he would say that he didn't notice it, because it's not much of a secret that when Naruto would breathe, he could see his breath in the air, seeing it begin to get frosty. This would ultimately cause some problems for Naruto just because of the fact that there'd be moments where his pipes just wouldn't work and his water wouldn't turn on, so he couldn't shower or even make his prized instant ramen. But other than that, this would heavily affect every single person living in the same complex as Naruto, and they would hate him all the more, having understood that it wasn't until Naruto had moved into the same apartment that their whole lives had been turned to hell. They're now living in a frozen wasteland, and to them, it's all that cursed child's fault. He's the reason that they're living in this unbearable cold. And though Hiruzen would try to appease these villagers, ultimately they would hate Naruto and make it very obvious, going to his room, banging on his door, and telling him to calm down in there, that his mother should have killed him the day that he was born, that he's useless, that he's a demon, and other things among those. With that said, eventually Hiruzen would have to get involved, and it would eventually get to the point where Naruto would now be the only one living in that building, which would lead Naruto down the road of trying to play the act of the class clown even more than in the original, thanks to the fact that he felt just that much more lonely, and the disrespect that he would get from the villagers would be off the charts. Especially because of the fact that the villagers had spread rumors about him being a frozen cursed fox, among many other things. But interestingly enough, Naruto's frozen Genkai or snow release would never even play a factor in the story, at least not until the day that we would have the Mizuki situation playing out, meaning that Naruto's school life would be exactly as it would be in the original. Mizuki would still trick Naruto into stealing the Forbidden Scroll, and in this timeline when Mizuki would attack Naruto and begin mocking him for being a monster, something would just snap in Naruto. Naruto's chakra would begin surging, and the area would begin dropping in temperature rapidly. Icy wind swirls would begin to appear as Naruto's tears would freeze over, and Iruka's blood would begin freezing as well. Iruka would simply watch on as Naruto would unconsciously create a jutsu called Hyoton, Thousand Snowflake Release, which would essentially shoot a massive amount of frozen snowflakes that are almost as hard as shuriken that all would go flying to the direction of Mizuki, pinning him to a tree without killing him, thanks to the snowflakes kind of melting upon contact, but still being just sharded enough to inflict the damage of what would be kind of like a paper cut, but a very, very cold one. All of these attacks coming at Mizuki at once would keep him knocked out, with Iruka watching this in amazement as he would tell Naruto, you're no monster. You're a shinobi of the leaf. And from now on, you're my precious student. He would bring Naruto in for a hug as Naruto's emotions would begin flooding out of him, and he would go into Iruka's arms thanking him for all the things that he had told them, claiming that Naruto wasn't a monster, and being the first person in the entire story to protect Naruto when nobody else would. So, as we would flash forward to the day of the academy graduation, Iruka would proudly announce the names of Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, and Sakura Haruno. Sasuke hearing this would narrow his eyes as he would stare at Naruto from across the room, giving him a stank eye as Naruto this moment wouldn't even notice Sasuke. He'd simply be in the back of the classroom reliving the events of yesterday, how he had protected his sensei and had used some sort of strange snow jutsu. Naruto was completely in the dark as to how he did it, because in that moment, Naruto's body just kind of moved on its own. So it's not like this is even a power that Naruto's going to be able to draw from at any given moment. It's kind of going to function like Kurama in a sense, just for the beginning sections of the story, because for those of you wanting an OP Naruto, trust me, it's coming, but we gotta build to that a little slowly for now. Anyways, with that said, Sakura would also be staring at Naruto, but she'd be a bit torn on how she feels, because on the one hand, she doesn't really like Naruto, because in this timeline his personality would be just a bit more obnoxious than in the original timeline. However, there's one part of her that can't help but be drawn to Naruto, because she remembers a time in class where Naruto, after having been made fun of by everybody via failing a test that they were doing, Naruto would throw kunai towards the direction of the target, completely missing, with it landing on the ground and freezing a small patch of grass. Nobody really would have noticed this except for Sakura, but thanks to the hot heat of the day, it had almost melted instantly, with Sakura, Hinata, and maybe even Iruka being the only ones to have noticed what had happened. So only few in the class would even take note of the fact that Naruto definitely does seem to possess some sort of strange ice or snow or whatever you want to call it powers. And because Sakura would kind of be in the loop about this, she would find Naruto's powers beautiful, but also a bit scary, because there would be times whenever the room would almost freeze over, and the origin point of this almost always seemed to be Naruto, though he would always play it off as Iruka not closing the windows or somebody playing a prank, which most people would overlook thanks to the fact that they don't really think too highly of Naruto. But she wasn't most people. With this said, more time would pass as Kakashi would end up arriving late like always, when he would see Naruto and he would instantly sense a cold aura leaking from Naruto's chakra. He would then read Naruto's file and pause for a moment. It would read, Hyoton user, which is essentially snow release, I think, as well as Jinchuriki. Kakashi seeing this, then staring at him, would think that if he was able to use both of those things in tandem, he would make for a terrifying combo, which would lead Kakashi to being very intrigued with Naruto and lead him to decide to actually take Naruto's training a bit different than the others, trying to test him more so. So during the bell test, Kakashi would watch Naruto very closely, as Naruto, unlike in the original timeline trying to attack Kakashi, we would actually see Naruto hiding like he would be in the original, as Naruto would have a little bit of a flashback moment of him trying to recreate the snowflake jutsu that he would have in the forest the day before this, right after he had been told about the bell test by Kakashi after the introductions, and we would see Naruto in his room failing over and over to manipulate the chakra, because Naruto didn't understand the concept of it. It wasn't just one chakra nature being manipulated, but two. So, as Naruto would be sitting there wondering how to replicate this in battle, Naruto, lost in thought, would watch on as Kakashi would land next to him and question whether he's gonna attack now or later. Naruto, being caught off guard, would jump back going, "What? How did you?" But before this could happen, Kakashi would go in to land an attack, trying to knock Naruto out to see how he's gonna react. However, instinctively, Naruto would recreate the snowflake jutsu as he would nearly defeat Kakashi, who narrowly dodges, having felt the change in air quality, him barely avoiding the attack and not being skewered, with only a few snowflakes hitting him in his Jonin vest and a couple in his shinobi headband. This would leave a small scratch there, as Kakashi, looking at Naruto with wondering eyes, would start to think about whether that was intentional or not. It seemed almost as though his body had moved on his own, but Kakashi, lost in thought, would suddenly be ambushed by Sasuke, who's trying to go after Kakashi with him being distracted. Naruto would watch on as Sasuke would weave hand signs, yelling out, "Fire style! Fireball jutsu!" Suddenly, he could see a massive ball of flame being shot at Kakashi, which would be countered by a mud wall jutsu from the sensei, as he would then counter Sasuke and place him in a lock on the ground, Sasuke's attempt having been completely stopped. It's in this moment that Naruto, watching on as Sasuke had bravely leaped into the battle and had actually used ninjutsu against him, would feel so useless. Naruto would attempt to copy Sasuke's jutsu, thinking that if he can do it, then he can too. However, it's in this moment that Naruto, out of desperation, would begin to feel his chakra swelling up inside of him. He would feel chakra all over his head, specifically near his eyes, as all too suddenly, his eyes would begin glowing, and the deep blue color of his eyes would begin to change. Naruto would discover that he has a dojutsu, and it would be named the Seigon, aka Blue Eye, which is going to be capable of some crazy feats in the story, but I'm going to be explaining those later. Anyways, Naruto, having seen Sasuke's attack, would instinctively, once the dojutsu would be activated, replicate Sasuke's attack, but the reverse of it, as he would go on to create a snowball jutsu, sending a massive ball of snow flying at Kakashi, who at this point had Sasuke pinned down by the arm, as he would be consumed inside of the snowball and then sent to a tree, which would stun Kakashi after crashing into it, taking a bit of damage from the attack, with him realizing that the main source of the damage was internal. Him being inside of that snow for just a few seconds had scrambled up his organs for a bit, and that feeling that you get when you drink really cold water and it kind of like hurts your throat and you can feel it in your chest and stomach, Kakashi would feel all over his body. It had almost put his body into a shock-like state, which would slow Kakashi's movements down just enough for the two boys to attempt to take him on. However, it's at this moment that Kakashi, unveiling his Sharingan, would then proceed to read the two like a book, impressed at Naruto's ingenuity and saying, "You really are something else, Naruto," before then knocking the two of them out, and us eventually getting the whole food scene where they share their food, and we would get the whole Kakashi speech that he would give in the original. This is when we would get a couple of days worth of them going on E and D rank missions, until suddenly they would finally be given the mission of the Tazuna Bridge Builder, and this is when things would begin changing quickly. Kakashi would watch Naruto on closely over the course of these missions, him noting that Naruto over this time hadn't relied on his Snow Keke Genkai, and this would lead to a conversation between the two, with Naruto explaining that the truth is that he really doesn't know how to use it. He only instinctively does it sometimes, but other than that, it doesn't really help him in actual day-to-day life or even on the missions. Naruto would ball up his fist, telling Kakashi that once he does figure it out though, he promises to become an incredible shinobi, and he'll even become Hokage. Believe it, Naruto would say. All the while Kakashi would hear this, he would begin thinking to himself that he might have the way to help Naruto. Though he might not be able to copy his abilities, thanks to it being a Keke Genkai, Kakashi, with access to 1,000+ jutsus and understanding wind and water nature, might be able to help Naruto out down the line. But for now, he needs to focus on the three of them rather than the individual sums of the team. With that said, eventually the Tazuna Bridge Builder mission would finally be given to Team 7, and with them embarking on this mission, we would get the same scene of the Demon Brothers attack happening, with Naruto watching on as Kakashi would seemingly being killed, but Naruto this timeline not freezing with his survival Genkai instincts kicking in. Naruto on instinct would create a barrier of snow, kind of like if you guys have ever been in like a snowball fight and like you create like a wall of snow. Naruto would create that between himself, Sasuke, Sakura, and Tazuna, with the two brothers being sunken into the snow and feeling their hands actually covered in a slight bit of frostbite. They would jump back, realizing that the brat has some sort of strange Genkai, and in a flash, Kakashi coming in out of nowhere would take the both of them down, with Naruto watching on, shocked at the speed that their Jonin sensei displayed. All the while everybody else would be surprised at Naruto's abilities, with Sakura thinking internally, "He's so cool." All the while Sasuke would be watching on at Naruto's back, just thinking, Did Naruto just save me? Sasuke would grit his teeth at the realization that he was saved by a weakling, somebody that he doesn't even think is on the same level as him. So Sasuke would start kind of treating Naruto in a bit of a rude way as the mission would continue, until eventually Naruto, sensing a chill in the air and feeling the mist start to get thicker and thicker, Naruto would instinctively push his own ice release chakra outward as his frost would clash with Zabuza's mist, creating snowflakes mid-air, shocking Zabuza as a whirlwind of snowflakes would begin engulfing them, similarly to a small blizzard, with Zabuza realizing that that brat must possess that same Genkai that Haku does. He would attempt to kill Naruto, however, Naruto would be saved by Kakashi, who would leap in the way, protecting Naruto with a kunai, as the battle between the two of them would play out like it does in the original, until eventually Kakashi, finding himself trapped in the water prison jutsu, would suddenly be saved by Naruto, whose eyes would glow once again, and Naruto would direct all of the ice blizzard snowflakes towards the direction of Zabuza. This snow would consume him, as a small blizzard-like attack would engulf Zabuza, and he would be forced to release Kakashi from his water prison jutsu. This would ultimately impact the two of them, slowing both of their movements, since Kakashi would have been caught up with the attack as well, as we would then get the same battle that plays out in the original between Kakashi and Zabuza. This ultimately would lead Haku to appearing on the battlefield, as he would fake kill Zabuza and disappear. But all the while everybody would be thinking nothing of it, Naruto could feel something strange. That chakra, it was like mine, so cold and lonely. This would preoccupy Naruto's thoughts, and his emotions would grow a bit unstable, which leads to Naruto and Team 7 arriving to Tazuna's house, as the warmth inside of it would quickly begin to fade. Naruto would quietly be taking off his shoes as he'd be lost in thought quietly, and as he would step into the living room, the atmosphere would start to rapidly change. Within minutes, the temperature would drop massively, with the walls growing damp and a thin layer of frost spread across the floorboards under his feet, with even nearby steaming teacups beginning to chill over. It's at this point that Tazuna's daughter would come in, hugging her father as she would whisper, "Why is it so cold in here?" It's at this point that we would zoom into Sakura glancing at Naruto, who understood that Naruto must not have even been doing it willingly, because it seemed as though he was preoccupied with something. She would say, "Naruto," as he would look up at her going, "What happened?" This is when she would go on to tell him to look around. This is when Naruto, looking around, would realize what he had done. Naruto's chakra had leaked out, thanks to the uneasiness that masked shinobi had left behind. It all just kind of bled out as frost and snow. Naruto in this moment would consciously decide to stop thinking about it, as the temperature would start rising slowly over time, and eventually we would get a scene of everybody in there wearing blankets and hoodies and jackets and stuff, until eventually by nighttime the temperatures would drop and everybody would start taking it off. Naruto asleep would no longer be releasing his cold chakra. However, the next day things would change. It would once again go back, Naruto unable to control his chakra from leaking, with those worries crowding his judgment and him not being able to control it at all. It's at this point that we would then see a Tazuna frowning in the corner, with him going, "If he stays here, he's gonna freeze the damn house," as pipes would have already started freezing over and water would have stopped coming out of them. However, Kakashi, hearing this, would respond to him in a calm and final tone, as he would say, "He saved your life. Let him rest." Then Kakashi would pull Naruto to the side and tell him that when they return to the village, he's gonna help him try to put his ice jutsu under control. As the next day, they would continue trying to help Tazuna with the bridge building, as they would then start learning the tree walking jutsu that they would have in the original. So Naruto having a bit more of an understanding over his chakra would slightly help Naruto not to leak it out like he would before, having learned at least the basics of it, so it would grow less bad. It would only kind of just like freeze a couple of things and changes the temperature to the point where you kind of have to put on like a jacket or something. This would heavily help Naruto control things. But that's not why you guys are here. You guys are here for the action, so let's just skip straight to the battle on the bridge, and we're gonna zoom in on Kakashi facing Zabuza, as we would then also see Naruto and Sasuke standing back to back, as the two of them would watch on to see Haku's first move. But in this timeline, instead of Haku and Sasuke having their brief skirmish, he would kick things off with the Ice Mirror Jutsu, as a ton of mirrors would rise around them, and Sasuke would curse under his breath going, "Damn it, what is this jutsu?" All the while Naruto's heart would begin racing, his breath would start fogging, and snow would begin to actually fall inside the dome, with Haku being impressed at the fact that Naruto's Snow Kikagenkai influence is actually causing some sort of change in his Ice Kikagenkai jutsu. And so, as this would happen, Naruto would just start thinking, not now, come on, stop it. But the more that he tried, the more his chakra would begin leaking. It's at this point that Naruto would try to focus more and more. However, his emotions and his survival instincts would kick in. The mirrors would begin frosting over with a slight fog coming over them, as Haku's visible form inside of the mirrors would start to be a little hazy, almost as though it would be blurred. Haku inside the crystal mirror jutsu would wonder if this is going to affect his abilities, and he would realize that it did. It would slow Haku down, not significantly, but just enough to have it matter. And maybe even worse than that, it was making them harder to see through, which served to weaken the entire purpose of the jutsu. However, Haku using his superior speed would still begin overwhelming the two of them, with Naruto being completely unable to react and Sasuke avoiding them as much as possible. This would then lead to Naruto attempting to use the jutsus that he has in his arsenal, but it would fail, as Naruto would begin to feel like the biggest loser in the world, not even able to protect himself or his friend. He would watch on as Sasuke would do his best to avoid them having awakened the Sharingan in this moment, as suddenly a massive amount of Senbon would begin flying at Naruto, Haku realizing that Naruto is probably his biggest threat, thanks to the Snow Kikagenkai that he possesses. He would rush in with Senbons ready to end Naruto. However, it's at this point that Sasuke would jump in the way, tanking all of the attack. "Sasuke!" Naruto would scream out, as the air would shatter with a sudden pulse of chakra. Naruto's eyes would flicker blue, as his Seigan would activate in one eye and Kurama's eye would activate in the other. It's at this point that he would scream, his chakra surging, as a thin layer of frost would form over his skin. Hyoton, frost armor. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't perfect, but it was just enough to block Haku's next volley. Then, after all of these Senbon would be sent towards him, Naruto would lunge to the direction of Haku, punching him in the face and breaking his mask, as a bit of ice would be sent off of Haku's face as he would land on the ground and think that Naruto's Kikagenkai is incredible. He would then watch on as a corrupted version of Naruto would stand over him and would be about to kill him. However, just like in the original, Haku, noticing that Zabuza was about to die, would lunge in the way, himself being struck down in an effort to protect Zabuza, as Naruto would be standing there watching on, breathing heavily, as he would stand over the fallen mirrors, with his frost armor melting, as he would stare on the dead Haku, and Naruto would start to think that he was just like him. This is when tears would begin pouring out of him, and he would have the same talk no jutsu speech with Zabuza, which ultimately moves him to defeating all of the men and tells Naruto that his words cut deep. This would ultimately resolve the entire situation, as we would still have the bridge being named the Great Naruto Bridge like in the original, and we would now move on to the Chunin exams. We pick our story off right after Team 7 would return to the Hidden Leaf Village, with Kakashi and Naruto having a conversation after having briefed Ruzan on everything that had happened. This is when Kakashi would go on to explain to Naruto about the upcoming Chunin exams on his own. Naruto would question Kakashi why he's telling him of all people and not the entirety of the team, to which Kakashi would look at Naruto and tell him that as the moment, he's not sure if the team can even compete in the Chunin exams. he's too much of a wild card. That Kekkei Genkai that he has in tandem with the status as a Jinchuriki make him too dangerous of a wild card for him to pair the team with that. He would go on to inform Naruto that if he's going to be wanting to take part in this, then he's going to have to learn how to control his Kekkei Genkai. And Naruto would look down, starting to feel bad about the fact that he could barely control his own powers. This is when Kakashi would look at Naruto and go on to explain to him that that's where he comes in. He's going to show Naruto how to control his snow release, and though he might not be the perfect candidate, he thinks that he's probably the best person to teach Naruto these things. He would go on to explain to him that thanks to the Sharingan that he has, he was capable of copying thousands of jutsus, and a lot of those have to do with water style and wind style, which is what he believes that snow release is made out of. He would tell Naruto that he believes that it's also comprised of maybe another element, but he's still not too sure. He would explain that he believes that maybe lightning style might be a part of it as well, and Naruto, staring at Kakashi, would question him on how in the world they could even train a Kekkei Genkai. I mean, it's not like there's some sort of scroll out there to show them how to do the basics or anything, but Kakashi would turn to Naruto, telling him that his training is going to revolve around the fundamentals. Naruto at this point would then see a book placed in front of him, as he would say, "No, you're gonna make me read!" And Kakashi would grab Naruto by the shirt and sit him down, telling him that to understand his Kekkei Genkai and to become a better shinobi, that is, if he wants to become a Hokage, he's gonna need to learn this stuff. Because there's just no way that Naruto's gonna be able to just spam whatever jutsus he wants without having to actually understand them. And Naruto in this moment would kind of look down in shame, knowing that he doesn't want to, but he kind of has to. It's at this point that he would start looking into this book, and after understanding how chakra natures work a little bit more, Kakashi would hand him a piece of paper, to which Naruto would go, "Oh, Kakashi-sensei, this is for the, what was it called again? The chakra test or something? It's gonna show me what chakra nature I have, right?" He would hand it to Naruto, and in this moment, the paper would have every single effect that water style, wind style, and lightning style are responsible for. The paper would be destroyed, as Naruto, staring at it, would think, "Whoa, I'm so awesome. So does that mean that I have 4 chakra styles?" As Kakashi would look at Naruto and go, "Naruto, that was 3. Naruto would go, "Right." As we would then turn to Kakashi, as he would go on to explain to him more about how this works, telling him that before he's able to even master snow release, he needs to fully control his Hyotan. So he would practice shaping water chakra first, which he would struggle with at first, thanks to the fact that his chakra would pretty much start leaking out of him and would sometimes cause the water that he was trying to shape into turning into like snow. So he would get this like really nasty, fudgy looking water that he's able to throw around, and it kind of just looks like a snowball. But after eventually getting the hang of it and controlling his emotions, he would be able to stop the water from freezing. Then came wind, and with wind, it was a bit more difficult than water because of the way that the nature like kind of worked, I guess you could say. So Naruto would make it, and it would flow smoothly, but to a certain degree, because it was like cold wind was being shaped in his hand. Naruto would be completely astounded by this, and then would come lightning, which for some reason Naruto was better at controlling than all the other ones, because he didn't have to worry about it freezing over. He can't exactly freeze lightning, which was very cool for Naruto's control. But after learning everything, Kakashi would walk over to Naruto, telling him that control is everything. And after Naruto had mastered a couple basics in just 2 days, Kakashi would go on to explain to him that ice forms when water and wind meet. But for his case, he also has to add lightning. And he'd go on to tell him that if he rushes either one, it could become unstable. That's what's been happening to him. This is why his chakra has been leaking out of him, because of his Hyotan's unique properties. He would go on to explain to him that on top of that, now he's also going to be dealing with the fact that he also has a dojutsu. The Seigan is what he's going to call it. With Naruto looking at him and saying, "Whoa, how did you know the name?" With Kakashi saying that it was a kind of an easy dojutsu to name, considering his blue eyes just kind of start glowing and have this weird snowflake effect. Naruto would stare at Kakashi, telling him that that's a pretty cool name, isn't it? With Kakashi explaining that of course it is, they made it. This is when he would go on to explain to him the history of dojutsus, how chakra pretty much flows through one's eyes and it leads somebody to discover these new abilities. For the Sharingan, it gives them enhanced perception, the ability to copy dojutsu. The Byakugan, it grants them the ability to look around hundreds and hundreds of meters in every direction. Then there's other legendary dojutsu such as the Rinnegan, Katsuryagan, and many other dojutsus that have came around through history. He would start to tell Naruto that the way that it works is to essentially funnel chakra right to his brain, which inherently leads it to its eyes and is allowing Naruto to control it. But he would tell Naruto that for him, it's kind of a strange case, because the times that Naruto's been able to use it is pretty much whenever his emotions go haywire. He would explain to Naruto that in that sense, it actually reacts similarly to the Sharingan, going on to explain to Naruto that if that's the case, his mind is something he's going to be needing to keep tabs on. He would explain to Naruto that the emotion side of it is just as important as the jutsu itself when it comes to how Naruto's been dealing with things. He would then go on to explain to Naruto that something like this might not even be a problem, but Naruto's suppression of his emotions and the way that he's handled things his entire life has kind of started to mix in and disrupt his shinobi side of life. He would tell him that for now, they're going to need to start working on meditation, focus drills, and his quick reflexes to sharpen Naruto's Seigan control. And overall, the progress itself would be very slow, with Kakashi eventually telling everybody about the Chunin exams, believing that Naruto, by the time that the week would be over, would at least have some sort of decent control over himself, explaining to Naruto over and over again not to let his emotions overflow. And from here, we'd kind of just watch Naruto practicing with his jutsu over and over and over again, with the water chakra freezing, the wind chakra being too cold, and Naruto ultimately realizing that he might need to develop some sort of lightning jutsu just to stay above water. Also, practicing a bit on the two jutsus that Naruto's actually able to use for the foreseeable future, the snowball jutsu and the snowflake blizzard attack. Both being jutsus that Naruto could now actively use, just due to the fact that he had used them so many times that they kind of just remained etched in Naruto's muscle memory. So even though at first he had to work on them doing them kind of slowly, after a bit of practice with Kakashi, Naruto practically perfected both jutsus, now being able to use them as rapidly as if his body was moving on his own. So after the end of this time would be over, Naruto's control would have improved a decent bit. And no longer will Naruto be freezing entire rooms by accident, because now Naruto was capable of creating ice projectiles with a lot of consistency. But the more OP jutsus, the more beautiful, dangerous side of it, it's still a little beyond his grasp. That said, the Seigan though, it's kind of still more of a mystery in terms of what the full abilities can actually do, and Kakashi would finally give Naruto one more warning before the Chunin exams would begin. Remember, control is everything. You're not a monster, Naruto, but if you lose control in front of the wrong people, they will treat you like one. Then we would have the first test, the written exam, which we're going to be skipping over entirely because there's no way that I'm going to be covering that. Oh, and for those of you guys wondering if Lee would still have his little skirmish with Sasuke, yes, but the reason I'm not covering it is because Naruto would not get himself involved, especially understanding that he still doesn't have a full 100% control on his power, so he doesn't exactly want to use it right here and potentially freeze the building or something like that. That's not exactly what Naruto's signed up for. So the test kind of gets glossed over, but I could definitely see a potential scene where Naruto starts kind of freaking out and the room starts getting a bit cold or something, but then Naruto, like remembering his training, just kind of locks back in and just focuses, right? Because he doesn't let everything panic, and instead everything just kind of goes by normally. Then Naruto kind of just passes by entering the final question, and then we finally get the Forest of Death section, which we would begin with Anko explaining the rules of the test and how the forest section's gonna use, having them all sign pamphlets which pretty much are saying that if they die, the Hidden Leaf Village is not liable. After seeing that and signing it, the air itself would start to drop by 10 degrees as birds would begin scattering, and Sakura would wrap her arms tightly around herself, staring at Naruto, with Anko pausing as she'd be handing the pamphlets out to people and just kind of staring at Naruto, visibly seeing some chakra ooze off of Naruto. Sensing him, she would think, this kid, what the hell is he? As we would cut to the forest, and Naruto's control would start to sway slightly again, with the tension in the air of people potentially coming after to kill him, the chaos and the massive animals, Naruto would start freaking out internally, and so we would see snow swirls begin to appear around him, with the area that he's at starting to freeze over. And this would be horrible for the team for a multitude of reasons. One, because it affects the temperature. Two, because it's kind of going to affect them fighting, because, you know, it's kind of hard to fight around ice. And three, because it's going to be leaving people to actually go and attack them. Seeing a bunch of ice in one area, most people could kind of guess who that was. However, unfortunately for them, the one ninja that they needed to be scared of and not run into was the first one to arrive. And so, Orochimaru, being the first to arrive on the scene, would arrive staring at the team and licking his lips as he would stare at Naruto, going, "Fascinating. You seem to possess some sort of ice-kiki Genkai. That will come quite handy. But it's a shame. It doesn't seem like you'll be making it out of here alive." He would lick his kunai as Naruto instinctively would form a wall of jagged snow, with it hardening and gaining the properties of ice itself. As we would see Orochimaru launching a massive snake attack, with multiple snakes being ripped to shreds thanks to the fact that these icicles would have kind of just like pierced through them. And from here, we would see Orochimaru's eyes start to narrow as he would go, "Fascinating. A Hyoton user. And the Nine Tails? You'll make for a beautiful corpse, Uzumaki Naruto." This is when Naruto's eyes would start to flare in response to Orochimaru's threat, with him being unable to move, but suddenly, Naruto would kind of do like a cartwheel out of the way, as we would then see snow begin to emanate off of Naruto, kind of as if he was Jack Frost, like the air would just start getting super cold, and as Naruto would start to move away from his team, the snow itself would cover Sasuke's foot, causing a bit of freeze bite to actually like injure him, and he would grab Sakura going, "We gotta go!" He would move her out of the way as Naruto would start freezing the area over, with Orochimaru having to retreat from the chakra spiraling out from him. It's at this moment that he would think, "Such massive chakra reserves, and it's even freezing the surrounding area. I must have him." However, as this would happen, Naruto's snow would start to become razor sharp as a flurry of ice would be sent towards Orochimaru's direction. However, it just wouldn't be enough, because Orochimaru would weave hand signs for a jutsu to fully counter Naruto's, and he would tell him that though his snow release is potent, it has a glaring weakness: fire style. And so, the entire forest would start to light up ablaze as snow and ice would cover the area. Naruto would start to quickly put out the fires before they could spread. However, Orochimaru would melt his snow before it could deal damage. And we would be left with a standstill situation, with Naruto's body wanting to do more than Naruto could handle, and him ultimately pushing himself with the jutsus that he would whip out. Eventually, Naruto would place Orochimaru under a genjutsu, as Orochimaru would look around and see a massive blizzard coming towards his direction. However, understanding this was a genjutsu and Naruto's first time ever doing it, he would snap out of it instantly, seeing a blizzard of snow coming towards his direction, substituting behind Naruto and telling the boy that though he's strong, he's still not on his level. And with a kunai to his neck, Naruto would freeze over. This is when snow armor would appear on Naruto's skin and Naruto's eyes would start glowing. Suddenly, his whiskers would start turning sharp and the power of the Seigan would start overwhelming Naruto. His hair would start turning white as it would actually from its roots start changing, with a bit of frost coming off of Naruto's skin as he would stare at Orochimaru, and Orochimaru, as he would try to slit Naruto's throat, it would be blocked by the snow armor that would have been there. So Naruto would throw his elbow back at Orochimaru, sending him back. However, it'd be in this moment that Orochimaru, realizing that Naruto was kind of evolving as the fight would go on, he would decide that it was smarter for him to just take the boy out and to stop toying with him. So Orochimaru, going all out, would rush Naruto once more, to which Naruto's body would respond in a fight or flight mode, as he would be able to dodge barely, but then his body would give out on him. It was moving in a way that it was just unnatural. It wasn't ready to do that, and because Naruto's body wasn't adjusted to all this, he would just pass out. He'd fall to the ground and his body would fall inside of a 2-foot heap of snow. And as this would happen, we would then get a 1v1 between Orochimaru and Sasuke, which would be a bit of a fast skirmish, considering Orochimaru would probably be a bit annoyed and would eventually end up giving Sasuke's curse seal, with the whole Sakura protecting them as they recover and all that stuff, and then Sasuke coming out and like defeating the Sound Genin with his newly found curse mark powers and stuff like that. But as Naruto would be unconscious, all that Naruto could see inside of his dream world would be Haku in his mask standing there with snow falling around. Naruto would walk closer to Haku, asking who he was, as Haku, with a smile on his face and removing his mask, would tell him that he knows who he is. He would tell him, don't let the power overcome you, as he would then disappear and he would kind of turn to snowflakes with Naruto watching on and just being like, wait, no! But then he'd wake up and see the horrible sight of Sasuke letting his power run wild, as we would then skip to the preliminaries after all of the craziness of the Forest of Death would be over, and we would get the 1v1 battles, which Naruto would still be matched up against Kiba with. And the crowd would be really excited for this battle because they're about to see the Nine-Tails Frost Fox be defeated. However, before that could even happen, Naruto would weave quick hand signs as suddenly a blizzard of snow would go rushing to the direction of Kiba, and it would actually impact the crowd. They would all get extremely cold as Kiba would be practically frozen over, not in ice, but like so much snow would be covering him that the dude would start shivering. And not only is it also like making him cold, but it's also making him wet. Kiba at this point would look down at Akamaru, who was fully unconscious, and trying to get out of it, he would feel the snow start to get thicker and thicker as Kiba would start to be stuck inside of it, turning into like a bit of like a massive ball of snow, being completely consumed by it. This is when the Proctor would decide that he was done, and he would free Kiba from there, as Naruto would walk on towards the direction of his team, to which Sasuke would stare at Naruto wondering who would win in a head-on match. This is when we would then get the rest of the battles playing out for the Chunin exams, as we would then just move on to the 1-month training time skip, which you would think is probably going to be all about Naruto training with Kakashi and Sasuke to control his Frost Kiki Genkai a little bit more, but no, that actually wasn't what happened. Kakashi up and left Naruto in order to focus on Sasuke's training with the Sharingan and to teach him how to more properly control that curse mark power, as well as also develop the Chidori. Meanwhile, Naruto would actually be sent to a separate trainer who would be extremely well versed with elemental chakra control as well as dojutsu control, Yugao Uzuki, an Anbu member with a wind style affinity and one of Kakashi's few trusted allies. This character would not coddle Naruto, and instead of him getting the training with Jiraiya that would probably not happen due to Naruto needing a very specific type of training, which Yu-Gi-Oh would definitely be giving Naruto, because she was not coddling him at all. She would often hit him with one-liners like, if you can't control this, you'll kill your own teammates someday. That's not strength. That's weakness hiding behind power. And Naruto would train relentlessly, refining Hyoton, frost armor, developing new jutsu such as snow clones, an ability that allowed him to create not only a snow clone, but one that after being destroyed would pour into snowflakes that if you were to hit it, could kind of give you a bit of frostbite on your body. Because it's not only that you're making contact with it, but when it bursts, ice shards will kind of go around and it'll kind of just be like an exploding snow clone. It's kind of sick. He would also train on his meditation to control the Seigan without letting it control him. However, the biggest breakthrough that would come would be that one night while Naruto would be training relentlessly, an exhausted Naruto would accidentally combine his Hyoton with a trace of Kurama's chakra that would start going through Naruto's system due to his own chakra level starting to get dangerously low, and the result would be insane. It would be a blue flame surrounded by icy mist. It would kind of like crackle like fire, but it would also freeze the ground around it or cover it with a little bit of snow. You get what I'm saying? And as Yugao stared, she would be stunned by the development. That's not normal. That's a fusion of ice release and Nine-Tails' chakra. She would then get closer to it and try to touch it, but the second this would happen, her finger would actually frost over, as she would quickly have to start like taking care of it, if not it was literally gonna fall off. This is when she would name the attack Frostfire mode, as Naruto would realize that this is something that he gains access to only when he taps into the Jinchuriki's powers. However, it's incredibly dangerous and a huge gamble, considering the fact that it only lasts a couple of seconds. But it does give us a glimpse to what Naruto could become, not just as a Jinchuriki and not just as a Hyoton user, but something new, something terrifying as well as beautiful. And so, the stage for the Chunin exams finals would come around. Naruto would find himself inside of the stage, as Naruto would find himself face to face with Neji Hyuga. Neji just staring at Naruto with a calm, smug expression as he would step forward, believing that fate has decided this battle again. Holding out his gentle fist style, he would stare at Naruto with a grimace. He would say, "You're cursed by birth. "You're not meant to rise," as Naruto would simply stay silent, his breath fogging up the air as the crowd around watching would wonder how this battle's gonna play out. They've heard rumors about Naruto's ice attacks, and some of them would wonder whether the demon's gonna actually cause them danger. But this is when Naruto's Seigan would flicker, and Neji, seeing this, would say, "You have a dojutsu as well. Well, it doesn't matter, because it stands no chance against the Byakugan." As Naruto would hear this, he would simply remember what Hyuga had taught him, and he would say, "Thanks, Yago." This is when Naruto would allow his emotions to pass through him like wind. He would calm himself but not be weak, and the second that the proctor would give the signal, Neji would rush in, Byakugan activated, as his gentle fist strikes would hit Naruto's Tenketsu. It's at this point that Naruto, through gritted teeth, would actually leak chakra wildly, his jacket freezing over as a ripple of cold would surge from his feet. Hyotan, frozen pulse. A wave of frost would shoot outward, with Neji staggering, forced to leap back as snow would cover the arena, becoming a snowstorm so that nobody could even see it. People would grow cold, but seeing this display of power would leave some to be mesmerized by it. And as Naruto would sigh, he would stare at Neji once more, as both eyes would glow an ethereal blue, as the arena's atmosphere would change, all of the chakra suddenly shooting right back to Naruto as a cloud-filled sky could be seen. The crowd would grasp, seeing a bit of snow on the ground, as Naruto's chakra would continue to surge with a new jutsu forming, Hyotan, Glacial Spiral Bloom. This is when a swirling flower of ice with snow petals would start to surround him, with each petal being a chakra blade. As Naruto would dash forward towards the direction of Neji, however his movements would be slow, with the air itself having grown heavier and colder the closer Naruto would get. Naruto would break through his defenses as his fist would slam into Neji's stomach, enhanced by compressed snow chakra, with the Hyuga prodigy skidding across the snow-laced arena having been fully defeated. The crowd would erupt, with even the elders being stunned, and Hyuga elders whispering uneasy. This is when we would then get a close-up of Orochimaru, who's staring at the potential of Naruto's snow release, would start to have some excitement build up in his mind as he would think, "I must have him." After the defeat of Neji, we continue to focus on the Chunin exams with everything that happens afterwards. We would get the same battle between Sasuke and Gaara, and all the while that would be happening, up on the Hokage standpoint where everybody else would be watching from, this is when we would zoom in and we would stare at the transformed Kabuto and Orochimaru, with Kabuto leaning over towards Orochimaru and whispering, "Lord Orochimaru, do you believe this to be wise? If the boy loses control during the chaos, he might freeze the entire village." Orochimaru, hearing this, would smile as he would whisper back, "That's the point." It's at this point that the invasion would begin, and as Naruto watches the village spiral into chaos, he would turn to see Sasuke and Gaara exiting the arena. All the while Naruto would turn to see Sakura in danger. A rogue sand ninja would raise his blade and would be about to strike at the unconscious Sakura, and at this point Naruto doesn't even think. He would just lunge towards her direction, protecting her with a brand new technique named Hyotan, Frost Flash Step, a technique that pretty much gives him cold propulsion, and in a blink of an eye, Naruto was right next to Sakura as the blade would come down on Naruto, and Naruto's frost armor would stop it before then shattering, as we would then be greeted to Sakura watching Naruto with his frost armor, which has shattered in this moment, and she would gasp, with Naruto breathing in with intense eyes, just staring back at her, as he would pretty much tell her to stay with him. It's at this point that Naruto, without bragging or without yelling, would simply launch a one and done attack, absolutely decimating the ninja, as we would then see Naruto gazing at Sakura with his blue ethereal eyes. She, looking at him, would have a slight blush as Kakashi would yell at Naruto, telling him to go after Sasuke, and so he would begin chasing Gaara. As some embers of the nine-tailed fox's chakra would start to slowly leap forth, Naruto would start to freak out as sections of the forest itself would start to be covered in a light coat of snow. Naruto suddenly would channel his thoughts and remember that power that he had been training to hone this whole time. Frostfire mode. Naruto would channel it not with rage but with purpose, as a blue flame would ignite behind him and Naruto would start to be shrouded in a strange mist-like snowy aura. ice and fire coexisting as it would swirl like a storm. And as Gaara would be about to land his final attack, out of nowhere, Naruto would come in fast as ever and land one punch directly on Gaara's stomach. This would send Gaara flying through 3 trees, as that section that he had punched would be burned and would also have frostbite on it. Gaara's skin would start to spread as the flames themselves would start consuming Gaara, leading him to losing all sense of himself and giving the full control over to Shukaku. With Naruto watching on as Gaara would start to transform into a kaiju-like being, and Naruto now standing in front of it would start to understand the magnitude of his opponent. Naruto would simply close his eyes and begin to channel all the chakra that he has within himself, before suddenly a massive amount of snow would shoot forth from underneath Naruto's foot, as this amount of snow would pile up similarly to how Gaara would use his sand to control his opponents and just consume them. Naruto in this moment would cover Shukaku with the ice, as suddenly a slight blue flame would start to cover it over. However, this time, it wouldn't destroy, it would almost lull Gaara, telling him to wake up. And in this moment, Gaara would widen his eyes as he would look around to see snow. The entire area would look beautiful, and as he would stare at Naruto to watch him get closer and closer, he would feel as though this was his final moments. However, Naruto wouldn't strike at him. Instead, he would extend a hand out asking him if he would give this all up, if only he had a friend. And Gaara, staring at his hand, would wonder what kind of malicious intent he has. Naruto in this moment would tell him that in that brief period of time that he was underneath all that snow, Naruto had a linked up moment with him where he had understand why Gaara was like this. It's Shukaku's fault, right? Naruto would say, as Gaara would stare at Naruto and he would tell him that if he feels this way because he's alone, well then he'll never be alone again. And as Naruto would extend his hand out, the Sand siblings would end up arriving as well, questioning to see if Gaara was okay, as Temari would hug her brother and Kankuro, taking him over his shoulders, would begin carrying him back to the Sand Village. After this, things would go back to being peaceful, with the aftermath happening and everybody starting to recognize and reflect on everything that had happened. The Hokage would be dead, and as Naruto would stand over his grave, tired and bruised, Naruto would wonder what Hiruzen would say right now if he was still alive. And while Naruto would be reflecting on everything, we would zoom in on Sasuke, who behind Naruto just staring at his back would feel nothing but rage. He feels as though he has still stayed just as weak as he was when he had graduated the academy. Nothing's changed, even after an entire month of pushing himself beyond his limits to surpass Naruto, Gaara, and Neji. He still feels so inferior to Naruto, and he hates that. And as he would think about this, Orochimaru's words would echo in his head: "If you want power, Sasuke, find me." And this would sort of begin setting up the Sasuke retrieval arc. But with that said, what happens after this? Because normally we would kind of get a scene of Naruto and Jiraiya going on to find Tsunade. But because Naruto in this timeline never trained with Jiraiya, there's no reason why Jiraiya would all of a sudden go to Naruto and start pretty much wanting to train with him. So unfortunately, this does kind of mean that Naruto doesn't develop the Rasengan in this timeline, unless you want to say that Kakashi would potentially teach it to him over the time skip, which could be very realistic just due to the fact that we know he knows the technique. So maybe we could still give him some sort of snow Rasengan or something like this, like a white wind or lightning or something like that, like a disappearing snow Rasengan would be so sick now that I thought about it. But anyways, that's not the point. Once this whole thing would be over, about 2 days after the death of Hiruzen, I could see Yugao start to tell Naruto that she's pretty much taught him all he can, as she would pass him on to yet another Anbu member who is from the land of snow, who has various temperature manipulation techniques and could potentially show him a thing or two when it comes to controlling a Seigan or something. And with the Seigan being a point of discussion, we now have to cover a couple of things that he'd probably learn over this time, which would probably consist about a week. Naruto would learn that he can see thermal temperatures, and that was the upside of the Seigan. It started to unlock more and more things as time would pass, and it almost seems as though the Seigan itself was evolving. A different snowflake or a snowflake-like pattern would begin to evolve fully until it forms a full-on snowflake in his eye, in both eyes. Naruto could see heat, cold, and chakra differences, and Naruto would learn to predict movement not like the Sharingan, but through temperature shifts, seeing the way that the human body was moving and like temperatures was about to rise and all that stuff. Naruto could tell what somebody was about to do, understanding the temperature rise when somebody's channeling chakra through their eyes, legs, arms, ears, everything. Naruto would start to use this in a very intelligent-like way, and as all this would begin happening, this is when we would have the encounter of Itachi and Kisame versus Naruto. Because as Naruto would be inside of the forest in a snowy area where there's kind of like a little bit of a blizzard atmosphere, this is something that the villagers had kind of become accustomed to. There's like some sections of the village where whenever Naruto's there, they kind of just start getting like very cold, and like the nearby villagers kind of have to understand that like it's about time that they got to whip out their coats and stuff like that. Naruto's over there training, and this would be easy for Kisame and Itachi to recognize where he would be at. So as Naruto would be working with the new Anbu member who would be teaching him how to control his temperature and use different jutsus and hand signs and chakra flow, suddenly Naruto could feel somebody arriving near them. And it wasn't because of the fact that Naruto could see them visually or even had his Seigan activated, but it'd be something a bit more cooler. Naruto, through feeling the change in snow, like knowing that someone had taken a step into his snow domain, Naruto could kind of sense everything that was happening in there, and Naruto would pick his head up, telling the Anbu member to look up, that they've got company. It's at this point that Itachi and Kisame arrive, and Naruto would stare at the both of them as he would slowly stand up from his sitting position as he would like meditating to control his chakra, and Naruto with longer like hair and his blue eyes staring at them, he would awaken his Seigan. Naruto, now staring back at them, would ask them what business they have here. And this is when Kisame would speak up, aiming his blade at Naruto and telling him that the brat is going to be coming with them. Naruto at this point would crack his knuckles and neck before asking if he can try out that technique, and we would then get a glimpse of Naruto covering himself with Frostfire armor. It would be far more potent, and an armor that if you even hit Naruto, you're gonna be feeling it for weeks. So as Naruto would rush towards the direction of Kisame, knowing that he's probably the weaker link out of the two, Kisame's blade would go across Naruto, about to slash at him, with just enough force to not kill him, but to send him flying back. However, the moment it would impact him, that section of Samehara would literally be destroyed, and Samehara would have like a fat chip on it with a bit of frostfire starting to spread. Kisame, seeing this, would be stunned, going, "What? How?" But before he even knew it, snow little pillars would start to appear for Naruto as he would jump from one side to another, and in the air, Naruto would weave hand signs going, "Snow Blizzard technique." Suddenly, a massive blizzard would appear where the lot of them were standing, and the only one capable of now tracking Naruto would be Itachi thanks to the chakra. The blizzard was certainly blocking his vision a bit, just due to the fact that you can't fully open your eyes in one, and suddenly, these gigantic snowflake-like massive shuriken would go flying towards them, Kisame narrowly dodging it as Itachi would substitute out of the way. It's at this point that Itachi would decide that enough is enough and would begin to weave hand signs for the fire style jutsu. However, before he could finish that, the Anbu member would grab Itachi's wrist before it would then explode into a bunch of crows, and in this moment, Itachi would stare at the Anbu member as he would be trapped inside of Tsukiyomi, or actually let's do a normal genjutsu, as he would pass out instantly. Naruto, recognizing this, leaping in the air, would then weave hand signs for a bunch of snow clones to appear, and it's at this point that 100 of them in the air would all simultaneously weave the hand signs for a snowball jutsus. Naruto would then scream out, "Snowball avalanche!" as multiple amounts of snowballs would begin falling at them. And with this being the case, Itachi, seeing this, would weave a hand sign for a majestic flame jutsu. It would melt them all before they could hit the ground as water would come pouring down, also melting the surrounding snow. It's at this point that Kisame would smirk as he would grab Samehara and ask if she would like some chakra, and Samehara would smile as he would begin to lunge towards Naruto. However, before his attack could land, we would then see Kakashi with a kunai blocking the attack. Suddenly, all the Jonin would arrive, and Itachi and Kisame would be forced to retreat. with them leaving Naruto and Itachi wondering just how strong that boy will grow. Because in that light skirmish, Naruto and Itachi as well as Kisame were all kind of just testing the water, seeing what each had to display, because Itachi's the type of fighter to analyze his opponent before utterly destroying them. And that's the kind of fighter that Naruto was becoming, thanks to having been trained by Anbu members, Kakashi, as well as having him develop a new, kind of like more attentive personality. But anyways, with that being said, a couple things that would kind of change, because this is obviously Tsunade might not return to the village, but I'm not sure if she would help Orochimaru. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, would she help him get his arms back after his encounter with Hiruzen? I don't think so. I don't think that even she would do that. However, I also don't think that without Naruto there, she would go on to become the Hokage of the Leaf Village. So in this specific timeline, I could actually see Jiraiya kind of like becoming the Hokage, not because he wants to, but because he would much rather have him be Hokage rather than let Danzo come into power, which is practically like the worst case scenario. So Jiraiya would become the Hokage, and Tsunade would still return to the village to heal the injured that the Leaf had, but that would be it. She would also pretty much say congratulations to Jiraiya and maybe stay for his coronation thing of him becoming Hokage, but other than that, she'd probably leave right after. And with that being the case, she kind of just becomes like non-important to the story, which greatly impacts Sakura's character development, just because she's not going to be getting the healing stuff or the medical ninjutsu or any of the crazy power-ups that she ended up getting thanks to Tsunade. Which, speaking of, I'm not gonna lie, I think I would have preferred Naruto to gain like some crazy monster strength and also have like some crazy healing jutsu as well as the 100 healing stuff. But anyways, I'm getting off topic. Point is, after this would all take place, I could see Sasuke getting very upset at the fact that Itachi was kind of targeting Naruto and just kind of didn't care about him. Sasuke would be very butthurt about that, and he would probably get like really angry, which would definitely feed to his like feeling of inferiority to Naruto, and maybe we could have like a 1v1 battle between the two, with Sasuke wanting to prove to himself that he's much stronger than Naruto, but it would very much so fail. He wouldn't be able to stack up to Naruto at all, and instead he would actually get absolutely clobbered by a multitude of snow jutsus, and he would be shown that at the moment, Naruto's Seigan is so much better than his own Sharingan that it's not even funny. So after getting absolutely embarrassed by Naruto, he would probably easily be manipulated to joining Orochimaru, and we would still get the Sasuke retrieval arc, which you would think would change a lot or would have like a lot of crazy stuff go down, but in my personal opinion, I'm just not too sure about that, because obviously now we're going to be getting a bit of different matchups, with the two significant ones being Naruto versus Kimimaro as well as Naruto versus Sasuke, with snow release of course. So let's cover the first battle and how I think this would play out. Immediately kicking things off into high gear, Naruto would start by creating a blizzard to pretty much make the entire battlefield his very own domain. And to match this, I can see Kimimaro understanding that Naruto is a very dangerous opponent, especially due to the nature of the jutsu style that he's using, which is essentially snow, and could very much so impact Kimimaro because his bones aren't necessarily going to be protecting him from freezing over. So we could potentially go into his curse mark state earlier on than in the original, and we could see him using his like crazy bone jutsu to make the battlefield covered in not only snow but massive bones that would protrude from the ground. And so we would see Naruto whipping out all the stops with his frostfire armor and clones, and leaving clones to go in and attack Kimimaro, which ultimately after destroying them would weaken him down bit by bit until ultimately Kimimaro just couldn't keep going, his body being covered in frostbite after having taken on so many clones. And as he would be making his final stand with the whip out of his spine, and he would aim it at Naruto about to attack him, a snow wall would appear. Before then, a multitude of snowflakes would then go rushing towards his direction and just consume him. The snow would bury him, and as Naruto would watch the snow completely cover Kimimaro, Naruto would simply whisper, "Rest in peace," as he would then squeeze his hand, and similarly to what Gaara does with his sand, Naruto would proceed to squeeze the snow, compressing it until a little blood spot would be left behind. And Naruto would then run off, with Rock Lee having arrived just in time to see that, and him being stunned, thinking, he was in there. It's at this point that he would realize that Naruto is leagues stronger than how he was at the Chunin exams, as we would then cut to Naruto versus Sasuke. We immediately zoom in on Naruto, who would be chasing after Sasuke, when suddenly Naruto would grow tired of this, as Naruto's eyes would glow and you would see him in his mind think, "Frost Flash Step." Suddenly, Naruto would be in front of Sasuke as the entire atmosphere would change. Suddenly, the ice that would be down below in the area where they would have fought in the original, the name kind of escapes me for a second, but you guys know what I'm talking about. The ground below would suddenly start to freeze over as glaciers would start to form and snow would begin falling. Naruto would ask Sasuke why in the world he continues to try to leave the village. What is it that Orochimaru could give him that the village itself couldn't offer Sasuke? And he would look down before staring at Naruto, curse mark and Sharingan activated, before saying, "Power, Naruto. The village can't offer power." Naruto would stare at Sasuke as it would tell him that he got power and he got it from the same people in the village who he would think are weaker than him, are lesser than him. Sasuke would grit his teeth before saying, "Shut up! You don't know anything about it. I've already gotten all I need from the village. Kakashi's already trained me and taught me all he can when it comes to the Sharingan. You've only gotten as strong as you've gotten because of your Kekkei Genkai, that snow release garbage that you were born with. Well, guess what? I didn't get that same luxury that you were born with. So some of us have to actually earn our power." You want to talk about earning your power, Sasuke? Well, how about we talk about how I earned it? He would be about to explain to him how he went through it before Sasuke would rush towards him, throwing a punch straight at Naruto's face. However, upon making contact, Sasuke's fist would freeze over as he would stare at his hand and look at Naruto. It's at this moment that it would be revealed that Sasuke would have coated his fist in chakra and would have avoided his entire fist from getting frostbite. He would be using a flame mode, one that he would have developed after everything that would have taken place with his fight against Naruto, him thinking about a possible way for him to outmaneuver Naruto or overcome his snow release. Naruto seeing this would be shocked as snow armor would begin forming around Naruto, and similarly to Gaara's sand armor, it would begin to form a barrier between himself and Sasuke wasn't able to damage him. However, with this fist fire technique where he coats both of his fists and legs in it, kind of like how Sanji does, he would be able to actually attack Naruto and melt right through his defenses, with the flames being just hot enough to thaw out Naruto's snow. This would make the battle interesting, as Sasuke would then throw a kick at the direction of Naruto, which Naruto, seeing clearly by seeing the body temperature of Sasuke shift, would dodge. Naruto would question him why he would fight him, knowing that in this moment, the entire battlefield functions as his domain. Suddenly, snowflakes would harden and go flying to the direction of Sasuke, as he would watch them with a Sharingan and dodge each and every single one of them, as a smug smile would appear on his face, thinking he had avoided everything. However, once he would put his feet back on the ground, he would feel that he couldn't lift them back up, and Naruto would come charging at him, his fist now covered in ice, and landing a brutal, devastating punch on Sasuke's face. This would send him skidding across the ground, as he would now find his clothes being wet, with that flame mode that he had activated being completely turned off, melted by the snow. Sasuke would look back up only to see an avalanche of snow coming towards him. However, snapping out of this snow genjutsu, he would look up to see that Naruto had begun to launch his next attack. A massive snowball would come flying at him, and Sasuke would narrowly dodge out of the way. It's at this moment that Sasuke would feel himself being grabbed from behind, as his entire body would burst into a flame aura, and it would proceed to knock Naruto's clone back. It would dissipate, smelting onto the ground, as Sasuke, now staring back at Naruto, would tell him that this battle is gonna end now. This is when his Curse Marks 2 stage would activate, and staring right back at Naruto, he would promise to defeat him. However, as Sasuke would be making this declaration, a massive, and I do mean massive, snow golem fist would be about to crush Sasuke, and it would do exactly that. Sasuke would feel his entire self being consumed by the snow golem, which would be about the same size as Hashirama's 1,000-hand statue. That thing would have nearly killed Sasuke in this moment, if not for the fact that he had his flame aura mode on, and so Sasuke narrowly would have managed to survive this blow without extremely major damage. Sasuke on the ground now, feeling his body going into hypothermic shock from the cold, would stare on as his vision would blur and he would watch Naruto get closer and closer before the entire area, covered in snow, would now turn into a green pasture land. Naruto having deactivated his jutsu after having defeated Sasuke. And it's at this point that, placing him over his shoulders, Naruto would take Sasuke back to the village, aware of the fact that while yes, that might have done major damage to him, at the end of the day, his mission was completed and Sasuke is going to be returning to the village. At this point, I could see Naruto remaining in the village for all the time that it would take Sasuke to get healed, and ultimately probably training alongside Kakashi, as well as the two Anbu members that had taught him some basics. During this time, Naruto will potentially learn the Rasengan, which he would eventually develop into the multiple variants of the Rasengan that he can create, and probably end up developing some sort of Rasen Shuriken-like technique. However, with snow release imbued into it, one that if it hits you, will practically freeze you over, with no hope of anything turning you back. The only thing possibly potent enough would potentially be the Amaterasu flames. But considering the fact that there's only 2 people in the entire verse that are capable of that, and one of them still hasn't even awakened his Sharingan, or Mangekyo Sharingan, that's not going to be a problem. So, over the course of this time, Naruto would just get stronger and stronger, as his snow release becoming more potent would eventually lead to the entire village one day, while Naruto would be training, to grow into a massive blizzard. Everybody would be shocked by the cold, with a bunch of people's pipes and stuff like that freezing over. This would eventually lead to Jiraiya pretty much addressing Naruto when it comes to this and telling him that he cannot train anywhere near the village. And so Jiraiya would pretty much end up making adjustments for Naruto in order to train outside of the village in a different land, the land of snow, which I'm just going to be assuming is an actual thing. And so we would pretty much end up getting Naruto becoming kind of like a hermit type character, where he's up in the mountains, like in a very, very high mountain with a snowy temperature. And as he's training up there, even the temperature that it comes from a literal snowy biome would even get colder when Naruto's there. So the people who usually live there would actually tell Naruto to go a bit further from them. And so we would end up having Naruto becoming this hermit-like character who, training up in the mountains all by himself in order to control his snow release, would develop an absurd amount of techniques, learning from a multitude of scrolls and different masters in chakra control and monks and stuff like that. Naruto would grow stronger and stronger as the days would pass, focusing entirely on controlling his jutsu and perfecting it like nobody has ever used a Kike Genkai. Naruto knows that if he's capable of doing this, he will be the most powerful shinobi that the world has ever seen. And Naruto's goal at the moment is to become far more powerful than even the god of shinobi Hiruzen Sarutobi or the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju. And as Naruto's power would increase, his fame would as well, people recognizing Naruto as somebody on par or even far beyond the Hokage. And Naruto would develop so many insane jutsu that it would be absolutely insane. Obviously, we would have his Frostfire mode, where using Kurama's chakra, he can pretty much create an ice that burns. It's so cold it burns you, and it comes with a literal flame on top of it. He also has his snow release jutsus, his snow Rasengan variants, his snow clones, his snow golems, his snow monsters, and everything of the sort, as well as also learning how to completely manipulate his domain, to the point where Naruto has now gotten genjutsu so powerful that if Naruto can trap you inside of it, Naruto has learned to pretty much manipulate your senses into believing that you are genuinely trapped under 100 feet of snow. And to the normal person, this would instantly kill them, with their mind telling them that their body is completely frozen over and died, when in reality, that's not the case. Naruto's just messing with every single one of your senses, your taste, your smell, your touch. The things that Naruto would learn to develop after this time would be ludicrous, and even after that, there is still more. Naruto would learn snowflake jutsus, snowball jutsus, an attack that pretty much wraps up a massive amount of enemies, similar to a cartoonish form where it kind of like snowballs characters, and once you're trapped in there, you're kind of trapped in there. It's kind of like the Shinra Tensei or the planetary devastation attack that Pain uses in order to trap his opponents in like this meteor-like thing. And Naruto would also develop a Seigan. The dude masters that thing, devoting every single second of his time to training. Whenever he wasn't eating, sleeping, or using the bathroom, the dude was training in the Himalayas practically, you know what I mean? Or meditating, or whatever you really want to call it. Naruto is an absolute beast of a character. And if that wasn't enough, Naruto has developed his own seeming flying Raijin ripoff, if not a Haku ripoff. Naruto has mastered the art of teleporting from snowflake to snowflake, using a sealing jutsu in combination with a snow Kiki Genkai and taking inspiration from Haku. Naruto would have developed a method to cover an entire continent practically full of snow, and within that area that is his domain, Naruto's capable of swapping places with any snowflake there, similarly to what Law can do with Shambles. And so, with that being the case, Naruto would practically be the most broken character ever. But wait, it doesn't end there. Naruto also ended up making a summoning contract with a Yeti type sage creature, and Naruto would learn Yeti Sage Mode, which would essentially be a snow version of Sage Mode that enhances his perception, his speed, as well as his brute strength, since Yetis are known for being absolute beasts. And this would ultimately serve Naruto to becoming one of the ultimate warriors, him pretty much developing a relationship with the Nine Tails after having made it submit to his will. He could practically freeze the thing in a cube and just thaw out the amount of chakra that he needs whenever he needs access to it. And when you really think about it, it's kind of like Naruto freezes leftovers and just kind of microwaves them whenever he sees fit. It's actually insane. So with that said, after the 3-year time skip would be over, and the Akatsuki would have taken that time to gather resources, manpower, and as well as some of the other Biju, Naruto would be up there in like this strange mountain-like area continuing his training. Naruto practically being completely done with his training, all the while Sasuke would have remained in the village with Sakura, and Naruto during the entire time would have only focused on training. This means that by the time that the Akatsuki would prepare an attack on Naruto, which would probably consist of Kakuzu and Hidan, since they're the ones who are kind of on their way to the Hidden Leaf Village, I can see an utter annihilation of those members, with them being destroyed. Hidan's immortality not lighting a candle when it comes to Naruto's Blizzard technique, where Naruto was able to use Frostfire, Kurama mode, and I was about to say Slug Sage mode, but no, Yeti Sage mode to just speed blitz around the arena and essentially appear and reappear. Similar to Minato, and even though I would like to say it's faster, it's not quite faster. It's like a bit slower than the Flying Raijin because, you know, at that point it's just too broken. And Naruto's able to just decapitate Hidan with an ice blade that Naruto forms that upon making contact with you, it just freezes you over and covers the wound with snow. It kind of like cauterizes it by being so cold, it's hot. Kakuzu would be absolutely decimated by a snow dragon that upon consumption would drag him into hundreds of feet of snow, causing him to freeze over down there, with him attempting to use a fire-like jutsu, with that being something Kakuzu's very adept at. However, it just wouldn't be able to melt through the snow. Naruto's temperatures of the freezing would be so much that a normal flame jutsu just couldn't do anything to it, similarly to what happened with Sasuke when he tried to melt Haku's ice mirrors. That's the kind of crazy stuff that Naruto's now capable of. And with those two members of the Akatsuki having been handled easily, I can genuinely see a world in which Obito decides that it might be worthwhile for the entirety of the Akatsuki to go after him. And because I want to make things interesting, and even though Itachi probably wouldn't go along with this, and in tandem Kisame as well because of his fight with Sasuke and him prioritizing that, for the purposes of this story, let's kind of ignore that and have the entirety of the Akatsuki pull up on Naruto, minus Hidan Kakuzu of course. So this means Sasori, Deidara, Obito, Pain, Konan, Itachi and Kisame and Deidara and I don't know, but you guys get the point. I'm not sure if I named everybody perfectly, but they all pull up in this area, and it's constantly like snowing in this area. So the second that Naruto would feel presences arrive, Naruto would create clones which would scout them out, with the Paths of Pain noticing this and trying to destroy them, which they probably would be able to if I'm being honest, but this would actually cost them, because there's some Paths of Pain that are more like brawler type fighters, with the exception of the paths that are able to like create like those summonings, and probably like the guy who's able to make like rocket attacks and stuff like that. Those two wouldn't be impacted, but the paths that actually go up close and try to attack would have been frozen over after just one attack and destroying the clone. So the rest of them would now grow weary of this, with Deidara thinking, how in the world are we supposed to defeat somebody who can freeze us over just if we touch him? As we would see Sasori say that regardless of how, they need to get it done. It's their mission, and as members of the Akatsuki, they cannot waver. So all of them would arrive, as all too suddenly an army of snow clones would appear, followed by snow monsters, snow dragons, and snow serpents that would coil around them. Naruto would arrive atop a mountain in a blizzardy area that they could barely even see through, Pain being the only one that could get a clear view, as well as Itachi and Obito. All three of them would stare at Naruto, who would ask them whether they're truly foolish enough to try to take him on with only this many people. Naruto then looking down at them and feeling the body temperature shift, then knowing that one of them was about to appear from behind, being Obito, would pretty much cause his entire body to be frozen, as Obito would take hold of Naruto, and that hand, those 4 fingers that made contact with Naruto, would completely be covered in frostbite, destroyed. Obito in this moment would realize what he's truly up against, and Itachi, understanding that he needs insane firepower for this, would let out a massive blast of Amaterasu flames. However, thanks to us knowing that Naruto can fully counter Itachi's Amaterasu flames with his KCM mode, Naruto's Frostfire mode would be more than enough. He would disarm that chakra that he had on his body and just throw it away, as he would toss it to the direction of other Akatsuki members, and as Deidara would attempt to blow things up, Naruto would teleport with the snowflake behind Deidara, who, once realizing this, arming multiple bombs in the air using his C0 technique, I believe it was called, to pretty much make microscopic bombs go in the air. We would see Naruto snowflakes disarming each of them by freezing them over, with Naruto smirking, telling him that it's over. Suddenly, Deidara would find himself being dragged under the snow by a Yeti creature that Naruto would have summoned, before Naruto would then be sent flying back by the Paths of Pain. It would then leave him on the ground, as Naruto then slowly getting up would watch Kisame's blade coming piercing him. In this moment, Kisame's blade would freeze over, as Kisame's arm would find themselves being covered in snow. It would get frostbite on them, with Kisame thinking, there's no way. It's at this point that Naruto, now staring at Kisame, would smirk, as he would appear right behind him and tell him there is, as Kisame would hear the words, Frostfire Rasengan. He would feel his entire body be decimated, with flames and ice so hot he couldn't tell whether he was burning up or freezing over. And honestly, regardless of what it was excruciating. Itachi, understanding that he needs to take him out now, would decide that he needs to use his Susanoo. However, upon creating his ethereal form, he would find it to be stiff, with it freezing over, with the temperature dropping rapidly, going below even 0 itself, and going further and further and further low. All of their movements would start to become sluggish, as Naruto's Genjutsu would have trapped them all, the only ones capable of resisting it at this point being Itachi, Obito, and Pain, as the rest of them would have completely frozen over, and Naruto would find himself victor. This is when the Paths of Pain would be frozen solid, and even though they'd be capable of tracking his movements, if you can't move with these dead puppet corpse-like things, then you're pretty much over with. So once this would be the case, Naruto would find himself appearing behind Obito, as Obito would phase, having been in the process of phasing his body practically that entire time. That's the way he was resisting the cold, and Itachi would find it harder and harder. Eventually his skin would start frosting over, with Itachi realizing that there was nothing he could have done from the beginning. It's so cold, no human could possibly survive in this cold. And interestingly enough, this would start affecting people from the entire nation. A cold wind would start flashing over, and we would start seeing people genuinely start fainting from the levels of cold that was leaving Naruto's body in this moment. As Obito, in one last final ditch attempt to defeat Naruto with one strike, which he would be able to actually do. Mind you, Naruto's insane in his techniques, but Naruto's still human. He could die. One attack from Obito, by pretty much like touching him and summoning him to the Kamui dimension with only one half of his body, would kill him. However, the millisecond that he would tangelize his body once more, his entire body would freeze over, Obito not being able to do a thing, as the drop in temperature would kill Obito instantly, with the paths of pain being the only ones semi-conscious, since they're not exactly living beings. Naruto, noticing this, would walk over towards the Diva path, as he could barely move its mouth. However, Naruto could tell its eyes were moving. Naruto would stare at it, asking why in the world he chose to fight him of all people, as the path of pain would simply stare at him, and Naruto, seeing the corpses of every Akatsuki member covered in snow, would wonder why they were so foolish. This is when the snow would dissipate, as Naruto would be standing there wondering why exactly something feels odd. This is when suddenly a black creature would wrap itself around Naruto, being Black Zetsu, who's not entirely human, and I'm not sure if the drop of temperature would even affect him. Maybe make his movement slow, but he's gotten Naruto, or so Zetsu thinks. Naruto in this moment would reveal to him that he was aware of his presence there, and he was inside of a snow genjutsu. Zetsu would be frozen over entirely, as Naruto's temperature drop would become so incredibly horrible that that entire area would be permanently frozen over, even when Naruto disarms the jutsu. And so, Naruto, making his way towards the rods of the paths of pain, he would track Nagato, making his way towards him and asking him if he truly intends on being hell-bent on his goal of world peace via strong-arming everyone. After a brief conversation, Naruto would decide to spare Nagato, believing that he might have some good left inside of him. And once Naruto had defeated the Akatsuki, Naruto would decide to, instead of returning to the village and going back to his old way of life, Naruto had kind of gotten used to being a bit of a loner. Naruto wasn't entirely alone. He would confide with the sage creatures, and there definitely was some village people from the nearby lands that he had grown very fond of, with a specific girl named Yuki, who also had beautiful white hair with golden colored eyes. She also was part of the Yuki clan and had an ice kiki genkai. So this is kind of where we would wrap up the story, with Naruto putting a big old bow over everything, not bowl, and pretty much ending the story with Naruto being like an insanely overpowered hermit, like ice, like snow slash, frost character, who's just kind of like this mythical, like snow control sage type creature. The dude, after years and years, would eventually become a legend on par with the Sage of the Six Paths. People talking about stories about how Naruto had dropped the temperature of the earth at some point, with how cold the snow attacks had become. So yeah, that's where I'm going to be wrapping this story up, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope that the ending was able to deliver everything that you guys had expected. Sorry if it might have been a tad bit rushed. It's just that it's literally like 1:24 a.m. right now. And dude, I had made that promise earlier to you guys, fully expecting you guys were not going to smash the like button, because at first the video only got like 2K views. So I was like, oh damn, like this video tanked, like they're not going to hit 1,000 likes. So I started doing other things and like just spending my whole day kind of like wasting time. until like right now I looked and I was like, damn, I have to record this whole thing. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. So if you've made it this far, please, for me boys, hit the like button, because I worked extremely hard to get this out to you guys. But I did want to thank you guys for hitting the like goal so quickly. You guys genuinely shocked me, so thanks for that once again. But yeah, I think that's it from me for today. I love each and every single one of you guys that have made it to the end. Genuinely, you guys have no idea how much your support means to me. This is the reason I get to make grub stops. I get to go to Cane's and buy myself some food. I get to pay my truck off. I get to pay my bills off and stuff like that, which, you know, I'm still not done doing, but you know what I mean? With you guys tuning in on these videos, I'm able to literally live off of this stuff. So thank you so much for making my dream come true, guys. But yeah, with that all being said, it has been your boy Xehther, and I am out. Peace.